Welcome to Boomer Bongo Boulevard. I'm Mike Just Mike. Along with me is my brother, Ron Just Ron, and we talk about boomer things. And this week, Ron, we're talking about living in a small town and growing up in a small town and what small towns are all about, because so many people live in small towns, and we did at one time, and I still do, and you don't, but they're worth talking about.
Well, I kind of do. I mean, it's get growing, but you know,
Aren't you a suburb of Dallas, though?
yeah, but it's there's quite a few of those, and some of the suburbs of Dallas are quite huge.
You're saying your suburb of Dallas
Yeah.
is small town.
Well, as long as I continue to hear coyotes and see a bobcat every once in a while,
Oh, it's true.
and turn in and see a horse or two,
Yeah,
I figure I'm not too far in the city there,
that's a great point. And one
and
word,
I can see stars at night too.
yeah,
So.
that's right. That's right. The no light pollution like you have in.
Yeah, it was like that was one of the coolest things about when I moved in this house. Now, as I was on, man, I forgot what the stars look like.
Hey, I wanted to flash back to last week a little bit. We had a couple of people comment out of our 7 or 8 people that actually pay attention to us that Laugh-In. We didn't mention Laugh-In, and I think we mentioned Laugh-In, but Laugh-In, in our opinion, is not a variety show. We did variety
Not a
shows, talked
variety
about
show.
variety shows because boy, that's a boomer thing. Variety shows died completely out. We talked about that last week. But Laughing just flat wasn't a variety show. They had no musical numbers. They basically
Hmm.
just were a comedy show, a skit comedy show, not even a skit comedy show, but just jokes after joke after joke after joke for an
Yeah,
hour.
quick cuts.
Hey,
They were kind of like inventor of the quick cut.
yeah, and it had a look. It had a variety show
Hmm.
look. Rowan and Martin, Dan Rowan, Dick Martin, in
Yeah,
their tuxedos. We talked about tuxedos and hosts wearing
yeah.
tuxedos, hosting the show and coming out and welcoming everyone. But there was no variety. There was no music, no bands. The Monkees were on once, and they didn't perform
Yeah.
other than doing their comedy shtick. And so we just couldn't, in good conscience, call it a variety show. The ultimate variety show was the Ed Sullivan Show. Talk about variety.
Yeah.
He just had a
Spinning plates, dancing bears.
yeah, puppets, puppet
Yeah.
shows, Broadway shows, rock bands, tap dancers. Are you kidding me?
Well, it was a funny thing. Davy Jones was actually on the same episode as the
As the
Beatles.
Beatles, yeah, the original
Yeah, he was singing a song from
Oliver.
Oliver
Oliver,
because he was the Artful Dodger at that time on Broadway.
yeah. He was in Oliver on Broadway. Had his
Yeah.
little accent, his little British accent that all the girls went crazy for. But anyway, Ron, we're talking about growing up in a small town, and I don't know what's the big complaint when you're a kid growing up in a small town, or a young person not a kid, but a young person, a teenager growing up in a small town. There's nothing to do, and that's right. There isn't.
Yeah, you had to find stuff to do.
You're right, and I mean, you basically, if you didn't, I understand if you don't play sports, there wasn't much to do. Or work on cars. A
Yeah.
lot of friends we had who didn't play sports worked on cars and drag racing and illegal
Yeah.
drag racing, mud riding.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mudder contests where you got out and had contests how far
Yep, I had a lot of friends that had Jeeps with the winches on the front to pull them loose.
hunting was a big thing, not something we
Oh
did,
yeah,
but a lot of people did.
still
Fishing.
is. Yeah.
So there are things to do in small towns, and they're just not the things that you have to do. There was no YMCA to go to, and no no indoor gym that you could access at any time of the day or night. But we just broke into gyms, right? That's what we did.
Well, there was actually one that was an old broken down school in Salis, the old the old Salis school, which I think somebody's redone that now. But yeah, the glass was busted out everywhere, and you could just roll up there and just go in there and play on
Play basketball
in the
all
old
day.
gym.
Yeah, hit a soft spot. And so we considered there things to do. We taught ourselves how to play tennis, and there were tennis courts around. And some small towns didn't have that, but I don't know if I did the bongo, Ron, but
Well, you got it
did it
in
then.
now.
I worked
So,
it in there now. So, but there were that's why we did sports, is because it
Yeah.
was something for us to do, and we enjoyed it. And people did music. People, played guitar and started bands. There
Yeah.
was a radio show that you remember the Big K Jamboree and
And see, I don't remember that. That was probably a little before my time.
well, it was done from I think the courthouse, and all
Yeah.
the local people who played instruments who did country would go to the Big K Jamboree if they were good enough, and they'd perform, and you could listen to it on the radio, and that was entertaining and fun to do. I never did that. I was not a musician, but
Yeah.
and then there's the complaint. Everybody knows everybody's business, which is absolutely true, 100% true. What do you think about when you think about small town things?
Well, I know sitting on that corner that we did every summer working at the station, we definitely knew everybody's business.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Because you talk about being a fly on the wall. Yeah, we were a fly on the wall because I think people just kind of forgot we were there, seeing where everybody was going and stopping and doing. And
Who's
I
talking?
gotta say, I kind of knew a lot of stuff.
Yeah, who's talking on the payphone?
Mm-hmm.
Who wasn't? And
I could even tell who was going to Jackson that weekend because everybody would hit the trace right there, man.
Well, when you say station, you meant our service station.
Service station,
and that our dad owned, where we were.
Yep.
And and hey, we knew which businesses made above the table profits and which businesses made under the table profits, and everybody in town knew it, but they were a little afraid to say anything about it. But we knew who were, we knew which businesses were selling drugs and exporting them and importing them, and they were businesses, and they were legitimate businesses that the quote big shots in town owned, and we knew all that. Everybody did.
We knew a lot of stuff. Well,
Couldn't prove
the people that came over there tended to run their mouth quite a bit.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And wouldn't even think twice about it. It was almost like being a bartender, man.
Yeah, not far from it. Ron,
you knew a lot of stuff.
what I was thinking about too about small town life is, and going back to the sports or the kids is they're I mean, nobody knew anybody famous. There was no such thing as some famous person. I mean, I guess there are small towns where famous people live. Stephen King lives in a small town in Maine, but most small towns don't have famous people living there. And you never saw a famous person unless just a 1 in a million shot. And what passed for famous people in town were actually the high school kids. I think a lot of kids in small towns kind of maybe have an inflated sense of themselves because you're kind of the star. A lot of it's about Friday night football and who's on the football team, and the kids that were on the team were the star. They've written books about that. The Friday Night Lights book famously did that, and I think it does kind of. I mean, you think about kids not getting screwed up in small towns, but you can. You get your head screwed up pretty solidly by being everybody carrying on over you when you're 15 and you scored 4 touchdowns on Friday night.
You're kind of leading into something else I got written down here, talking about small town. And boy, and I was laughing when I was writing some of this stuff because we used to laugh about some of these tales that our dad told about the condition of gyms and football fields that he played in.
Oh, yeah.
Like we'd be riding around, he'd point out in some knobby-looking pasture and go like, yeah, I remember playing
football
such and such city out there, and so-and-so scored 3 touchdowns. Well, out in a pasture somewhere. And I got thinking about that. I was thinking about some of the terrible conditions that we played in.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm gonna name you 3 football fields that were horrible.
Well,
and people think I make it up.
Don't name the towns.
The people that were there know I didn't make it up.
Oh yeah.
Like Kruger Chula Academy,
most
of them don't exist.
Yeah.
That sitting out there, cotton field on one side and fire ant hills every 5 feet. Oh, and the bamboo goalposts that if you hit them just right, you could probably knock them over. It was that. Then there was the absolute worst one I ever played on. It was at a school called Macon Central. We only played them one time. Apparently, they had never heard of resodding a field during the off season. So they decided they were going to resod it, but the way they were going to do it, they were going to plant it with seeds. So the entire field was nothing but that bagged manure, that's kind of just powder,
Wow.
and manure, saw but it's so dry, a lot of it's powdery.
I never played in anything
And
like that.
I'm going to make a tasteless joke, but frankly, by about halftime, it looked like a freaking minstrel show out there, man, because everybody's face was dark,
Yeah.
from the dust, and I blew out black snot for a week after that game.
You were just grossing everybody out here.
They just put
You just
stripes
made the
across
decision to
manure.
gross everybody out. You played. How could you be younger than me and play in worse conditions than I did? How's that
Then it
possible?
was Carroll Academy.
Yeah.
You could get out there and during the game against your helmet, you could hear it sounded like somebody was firing BBs into the side of your helmet because that was mosquitoes constantly hitting your helmet all day.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Like
well, they kind of lead me back into. There's this thing in sociology called life chances, and it means that if you want to be an actor, you got a lot better chance to be an actor if you live in Los Angeles or New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not many life chances in small towns. Not as many, not as varied life chances in small towns. And you certainly didn't know anybody. I guess if you live in Los Angeles, you probably know a few people who are actors. Maybe not famous people, but people who have been in a movie or a TV show or had a part or something. And you kind of think of that as possible. I mean, when you live out in small towns out in the middle of the country, you don't think you can be an actor. You don't think you can be really think you can be a rock star. You don't really think, you might think you can. I mean, there's a lot of things you think you can do. I think it does make you more practical.
Yeah.
Your decisions are more practical. Like, I don't think I can be a big time actor. I think I might be able to get a master's degree though and teach at the junior college.
Yeah.
I might be able to open a mechanic shop and have my own business. I might be able to become a plumber and make some pretty good money because even out in the middle of nowhere, plumbers make good money. But there's that kind of thing going on too. I don't know. You're kind of behind the times. Didn't you feel behind the times growing up?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. It seemed like, like we touched a little bit on about, one of the other things in small towns was going to the movies every Friday night. I think everybody around there did that. I know when I was in junior high and high school, that was the thing on Friday night.
Yeah.
Everybody went to the movies.
I didn't go to the movies.
That was just kind of a thing. And then people would go and hang out somewhere like at the M&F parking lot, or I think Scotty's had kind of been gone as far as that goes.
You got to hang out.
That was like high school back when you were in high school. People hung out.
You got to hang out. You got to go hang out. Wow.
Yeah, I would go.
See, there you go. You're the young brother. The younger brother gets. I didn't even get to hang out. The only way I could leave the house was if I was going to a game. That was it.
Yeah.
So I played everything, and I would actually take some pretty long trips because I could drive myself to a track meet if I wanted to. But our dad told us, he told me, I think I've told you this story. My dad told me once I was going to about a 2-hour drive away to a track meet. My dad goes, and if you got any ideas, let me tell you, if your name's not in the paper tomorrow, you're going to be in trouble. So that was the only way I could prove I'd been there. So I had to go and at least come in second or something to get my name. And the only way to guarantee your name was getting in the paper was to win. So you were taking a real chance if you didn't come in first place. So it was
you said something about the paper. Maybe remember something I had jotted down. I wish I could remember the guy's name. I can't even remember what he looked like. But there was a certain guy that hung out up on the square when he had his stack of papers.
Yeah.
When the paper would come out, and for some reason, our mother used to always buy them from him. I guess she just thought he was a nice guy, and she would buy the paper from him.
I felt sorry.
And he'd stand there, and everybody be lined up, pulling up there and buying the local paper.
Yeah, weekly paper. Weekly paper. Yeah. The irony of that is, even the larger towns now have, and we say a large town like the town we grew up in, maybe 8,000 to 12,000 people, something like that. And of course, a town with 40,000 or 45,000, it's getting to be a small city, at least to my way of thinking. And yet most of the small cities now, the only paper they have is an online paper, if they have that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the daily papers have disappeared because, hey, the newspapers did it to themselves. So I can't.
Yeah, they did.
By just, well, that's a whole nother story, but they pretty much did it to
Well, I
themselves.
worked
So it's
for
hard to feel sorry for
newspapers, and I used to make jokes that they'd be saying stuff like, "Oh, well, we can do this and this," and I said, "You guys don't realize we're at the buggy whip factory, man. Just make what you can while you can." I said, "We're going down, baby. I don't care what you do."
yeah. Small towns, don't you think now that small towns are better for the younger people because we are more connected? The only way we really saw the outside world was to see it on TV, and we didn't really have any way to interact with it. And now
Yeah.
you've got computers, and you can play games online, and you can have a quote friend who lives in Hong Kong, if they can speak English, and
Yeah.
get some interaction, or Russia, or people have Facebook friends that live in New York, and
Yeah.
have children that are Broadway actors, and in our case, people talk about their children or grandchildren, and
Yeah.
just a lot more connected now, and I think it makes small towns more attractive. There's kind of a
Well,
movement for
to
people
me,
to
it
live in
makes
small.
it where now you can. It doesn't feel so bad that you can't always get away and go visit people that are far away,
Right.
like us, for instance,
Right. Well,
because we're
we don't
visiting
live.
right now.
Yeah, we don't live that far apart, but yeah, you can see. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the Jetsons. The Jetsons are on now on. Can't remember where, but free.
Yeah.
You can go to Hulu and find them.
Yeah.
These words didn't mean anything years ago, but you can go to Hulu and see they've got all the Jetsons episodes, which I have
Yeah.
not been able to find those. I kind of kept my eye out. And I couldn't believe it the
Yeah.
other day, and I watched the very first Jetsons episode, and they have, of course, they had the phones where you could see people you were talking to, and they didn't imagine the picture in a picture, so it's actually even better now than it was, or that was predicted. They still don't have flying
I got a
cars.
feeling we're only a few steps away from watching robot football now with all the. Like I saw this guy the other day. It was going. You know the little weird helmets that they wear in practice that they look like Muppets.
Yeah,
Or,
the padded
yeah.
safety helmet.
There's some dork's going to wear one of those in the regular season. I think he plays for the Colts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and somebody, I mean, a comment the other day, somebody said something about, well, he's still accomplished more than any of you ever will. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm sitting in my living room and still look more like a man than he does.
Well,
unfortunately,
I don't. If they can figure out a way to make those helmets look sharper, they'll start wearing them, or maybe now if they come up with some kind of statistics that those are 40% safer, you're going to see everybody wearing them in games, and you'll see decorations on the outside. Do they wear them with decorations on the outside? The team emblem.
That's what makes them look like a mascot, because it makes their head like a. It looks
I've seen
what it looks like. It looks like a bunch of babies out there playing because you know how babies have giant heads.
I've seen them. I've seen them in real life.
Their bodies. That's what it looks like.
The ones that the high school kids wear, though, the high school kids all wear them in practice, and why shouldn't they? But they just look. They don't have team emblems on them. The ones I've seen, they're just like they're just plain. They look like something the Army would wear. The ones I've seen are green or gray or.
Well, they just teach kids to quit using their heads like missiles.
Right. Well, hey, they let people get away with it forever, and they shouldn't have. And and that's why people, you learn by watching. You watch these guys going in with their heads tipped down. And now you're anyway. I don't know if that's got anything to do with small towns. I guess it does a little bit.
We kind of went down a little rabbit hole.
Yeah, we did. But something I thought about. One of my notes is we drove more. I think country kids that live in small, drive more because don't they? I mean, kids that live in
so because I tell you something I ran into trying to teach Morgan how to drive was I couldn't find a safe place to take her to learn how to drive.
Right.
You could go out on like country roads and like the trace where nobody was, and it was pretty straight, and there wasn't a lot of traffic, and it was just a lot easier to learn. And it's hard to learn when people are flying and driving like maniacs.
Right, and you got 4 lanes, and I taught my kids in school parking lots because they're
Yeah.
big and they're kind of
Hmm.
designed to not be too dangerous
Yeah.
to teenage drivers. So I taught my
Yeah.
kids in school parking lots, and also if a high school campus on the weekend, if it's big enough, it has streets that drive
Yeah.
around from the back of the campus to the front, so you can
Hmm.
get to drive on streets, there's no real reason to drive very fast, so you can get your
Yeah.
confidence a lot more. And I always just told them, hey, it's just like a bicycle. You just point it the way you want to go, and there's a brake. And that's pretty much
Yeah.
all you needed to know. And
Yeah.
but I think we drove more, didn't we? I mean, we drove
Yeah. I think
everywhere.
so.
After we got
Yeah.
to be 16 or 17, we drove
Yeah.
all over the place, and
And I walked everywhere a lot too.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true.
One of the things I wrote down was walking. I used to enjoy walking to go look for comic books
Sure.
at different stores.
Yeah.
Man, I'd walk all over town.
Sure. You know what though? Jobs are scarce in small towns. Very
Yeah.
hard to find a job. I mean, we were fortunate that our dad owned a business and we could just work there. And
Yeah.
He wanted us to work there, but jobs, I can remember I lived in small towns, really tiny towns, when I needed a job, and you just feel helpless. You don't feel like there's any
Yeah.
job available. Well, there aren't any jobs available.
Yeah.
Anything that is available that's worth having is snapped up immediately. And boy, the knives come out too.
Yeah.
Folks are pulling all the strings, and unless you got a few strings to pull, you're not going to get that. And when you do
True.
get the job, it's golden handcuffs. You have to do what they tell you, because you really don't want to lose that job. So if they say come in for 42 straight days, you come in
Yeah.
for 42 straight days. That's small
Yeah.
town living, and pay's not as good, but of course the cost of living isn't much. And
Yeah.
nice thing, driving to work. You
Yeah.
said you just
Not
got a
far.
job where it's right down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Takes a mile away.
that's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, and I've had like a small commute at times, but half an
Yeah.
hour, 45 minutes, something like that. But now, of course, I'm retired. But prior to that, I had about a 6 or 7. My last 17, 18 years I worked, I had a 6 or 7 minute drive to work.
Yeah.
Almost everybody in the town I live in, which is actually a relatively more of a small city, almost everybody's got a less than 10-minute drive to work, and there's 3 or 4 different routes that you can take. So if you do a little research, you can make sure that there's nothing going on. You can check where there's problem, and maybe there's been a small accident. You just take an alternate route, and it's an extra minute, and it's just not as
Exactly.
comfortable to you because you don't go that way all the time. So I don't know. Don't you think it's more advantageous to live in a small town and grow up in a small town in general?
Well, that's all I know.
Right.
So, I don't know. Something might be, it could be cooler in other ways,
Yeah. Couldn't go to hey, growing up, it was hard to misbehave.
How many chances would I have ever gotten, let's say in high school, to go to somebody go, hey, let's go to the Mavericks World Championship victory parade they're having tonight.
Yeah, that's true. Can't do that.
Yeah, that would have never happened.
But if you had misbehaved growing up, you couldn't do it very much, because somebody who knew you was going to see you doing it. And it certainly was difficult to do things like steal. Not that people don't, but they generally get caught. You really feel sorry for them. You're like, wow, they're really stupid. How did they think they were going to get away with that?
Now, here's something else I thought of. Basically, parties in a small town.
Yeah.
I remember we used to have bonfires up at an old abandoned fire tower.
Oh, okay.
Up close to Salis area.
Yeah.
We'd go up there and we'd climb up that fire tower and we'd have a bonfire down on the ground. It was like out in the middle of nowhere.
You're lucky you didn't slip. Could have fallen off the fire tower.
Oh, no, nobody ever did. Even though there were steps missing, we knew where they all were.
That sounds kind of dangerous.
And a few of the nuts I knew climbed up on the outside of it all the way to the top.
Hey, how many people did you know growing up? Now, of course, wealthy people do this, but not wealthy people can't do this and live in a small town. But how many people did you know growing up who had horses?
Oh, quite a few.
Yeah, me too. Actually,
and cows and all kinds of stuff.
I had a horse growing up. I had a pony.
Yeah, I know you sure did.
And we had a little place that had it for 2 or 3 years, and that that's an advantage. So you don't have to be rich to have a horse. If you live in a small town, you live out in the country, anything like that. And something else too is when you live in a small town, little things are so big.
Yeah.
If something, if some famous person does come through town, you're all excited. If you get to go to uh, one of the college towns to go to a ball game, you're fired up for weeks leading up to it. I just don't think
Yeah.
people who grow up in cities really get that excited about that type of thing. I'm sure they get excited about things, uh, it's, I mean, just tiny little things are exciting. Going
I
to the
remember the first time
store,
I ever saw Memorial Stadium in real life just from a car. I'd only seen it on TV when I was a little
right?
kid. And I thought that was like seeing, you know, the Super Bowl out the window or
Yeah,
something. I thought that
yeah,
was the coolest thing ever,
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Um, something else too is, of course, anybody who grew up in a city is kind of ignorant about the country, but I think it's worse to be ignorant about the city when you grow up in the country than it is to be ignorant about the country when you grow up in the city. I mean, at worst, you're going to sound kind of stupid when you're
Yeah.
from the city out in the country. But you've seen all that stuff on TV and you kind of know what's going on. But seeing a
Yeah.
city on television is nothing like being actually in the city
No.
in real life. Plus,
Yeah.
you're hurting your neck looking at everything. you're you got walking around going, oh wow, like, and you really do that. You're like, you
I
never.
tell you what I've always noticed about, and I don't know if this is just the way it is here. It's just everywhere I've ever driven, any big cities and stuff. It seems like the traffic is terrible up to a point,
Right.
and then you get in the basic downtown, and then there's almost like nothing,
Right.
like no traffic. Everybody's on foot or something, or it's
Yeah.
and there's just like almost no traffic.
You
That's
hate to.
always been my experience.
I mean, if you hate to be so ignorant though, like you're 34 and you're trying
Yeah.
to ride a train in a city and you've never done it before, and they're like
Yeah.
12-year-olds just jumping all around it, and and you got to ask people. Of course, they're used to it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
still, I don't think there's an equivalent for the city person who moves out of the country. I guess they might
Yeah.
ask questions like, "How do you get around here without a bus?" That kind of stuff. You don't
Yeah.
have that, but
How do you drive on a gravel road?
yeah, driving on gravel roads is the biggest challenge.
What's the best way to pass at night on a 2-lane road?
Oh my
Now,
God!
see, that's something we would have.
Yeah.
Now, see, that even freaks my wife Linda out.
Oh,
is
really?
Passing at night on a 2-lane road because she grew up around in Jackson and stuff, and that didn't happen much.
Right.
And I always told her, I said, best way to judge. I said, if you don't know for sure, wait till something's coming. I said, you can judge the distance on the headlights.
I'm trying
You
to
can tell if there's a hill or they're coming up over a hill I said, you can tell that way.
I'm trying to remember the last time I drove on a gravel road. It's been a while.
I hadn't driven a gravel road in a long time. I've driven a lot of 2 lanes,
Right.
back in the middle of nowhere a few times.
Yeah.
Which doesn't scare me at all,
Hey, you know what? This is something right up your alley. You live in a small town. You probably got a little experience with gardens and growing tomatoes, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Walk up to somebody in New York and go, just on the subway, you sit down next to them and go, how your tomatoes doing? I don't think it's going to work. Chicago,
Hey, actually, what's funny is I think my tomatoes are going to come back.
Are they? We've got a neighbor.
Yeah, I just kept watering them, and they've started, since the temperature's been dropping, because I'd been told if you just keep them alive, they'll make in the fall. So I'm keeping them alive, and I've had a few little ones pop up in the last week or two, just a few little tomatoes like that. So I'm thinking, it might drop down in the 70s and get some sunshine. I might get some more good ones. Who knows?
Hey, Ron, just Ron.
What have I got to lose,
I rest my case. I just brought up tomatoes, and you did a soliloquy on tomatoes. Not happening in Queens, I don't think. Not randomly. Living in small towns, especially, you just bring up tomatoes. There's more than 3 people around. Somebody is going to do a dissertation on tomatoes. Their tomatoes.
Well, I had a dead-gum field mouse that'd been wearing my melons for a hat, apparently, because once the weeds kind of got up in that little part where all those vines were growing, I'd see, ooh, there's a good one, and I'd turn it over, and it looked like he got it and just went, and just ate it while he was standing up until it came, down to his feet, and then he threw it off.
Okay, what's your song of the week? Small town song of the week. I bet we both got the same one. Go ahead.
Probably.
What is it?
Let's say it. 1, 2, 3. Small town.
John Cougar Mellencamp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know whether to go John Mellencamp first or Small Town. I actually looked it
I
up.
figured you'd do that one too, so I went, I'll just do it too.
Well, I can't. It was well. And just to give background, 1985, which I think is the latest song of the week I've done, the most recent song of the week I've done. I've tended to go 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
from the Scarecrow album, and it went to number 6 in the top in the Hot 100. But I thought
Yeah.
of another one as I was sitting down here and going through the old Merle Haggard song, which is from the maybe 69, Okie
Yeah.
from Muskogee. You ever
Oh
heard?
yeah, that's a good one.
That's a
Yeah.
great one. I'm proud to be an Okie from Muskogee, a place where even squares can have a ball. That's a small town all the way. There's no such thing as a small town as a club that only lets the cool looking people in. Yeah. Oh, come on, because number one, there probably aren't that many cool looking people. There's a few people who think they're cool looking, but there's not that many cool looking people. If you didn't let the cool looking people in a small town bar or club, it'd be empty inside. It'd just be people going, well, dang, where is everybody? There's a bunch of them outside.
Yeah, I just thought of a Jimmy Buffett song where he was writing about a little town that was just disappearing. It was called Ringling, Ringling.
Oh, okay.
Ringling, Ringling,
Well,
slipping away.
Jimmy Buffett was born in Mississippi, I think. I know he went to the University of Southern.
I think so. Well, I'm not sure where he was born. I know he went to Southern Miss.
Yeah, he went to Southern. So he knows all about that stuff. Oh my gosh, now I'm so chuckling thinking about people lining up to get. You get in, they pick you by what kind of cap you had on. Okay, we're only letting purple hats in. Now you got a maroon. That's close enough. Come on up here. That'd be the women too. Yeah. Well, you women that didn't wear a hat. I'm sorry, you're not getting in tonight. That's just we got to have rules. There's fire codes. There's no fire codes.
Rules.
You can have fire codes. Small towns don't have fire codes. I don't think they've got volunteer firemen, but that's about it. Ron, I mean, it's just a thought. I guess it's a good thing to talk about and think about and reminisce about. But I guess we've talked small towns out as about as much as we can here tonight.
Oh gosh, there was one thing I just thought of too about small towns, like going to like little bars around small towns, little honky tonks. Hey, and this don't happen anywhere big. Somebody comes walking in the door and goes, "Hey man, there's a roadblock out tonight. I just saw it on." Oh, okay, hey, thanks, man. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just hang out here until somebody checks it out and sees when it's gone.
Oh,
and then come back and go, okay, roadblock's gone.
Ron, last Saturday night, I and my wife, my daughter, we had just been to a play and gotten back at about 11 o'clock. And there were 2 roadblocks. We went through 2 roadblocks. 2. That's how small my town still is. 2 roadblocks.
Yeah.
And I have my license out all ready for the second one because I just had it out. I just whipped it out. The cops looked at me like, he must have known. He must have known there was a roadblock. Yes. Well, why don't you guys not do 2 in one time? I mean, come on. Talk to each other a little bit. So anyway, that's it. Roadblocks, Ron. Boomer Bongo Boulevard. Right. We're on YouTube now. Check us out and tell your friends.
Yeah. And about to be the 40th episode.
Yeah, this is 39, by the way, tonight. Yep, that's it.